How's it going, everybody? And welcome to this episode of the Lonestar Halo Podcast. My name is Fernando, the Lonestar Halo. I got Todd, and we got Hacksaw, a familiar face. We are going to talk about the Angels, the Padres, and the Dodgers, all that and more, coming up after this.
One, two, three, go! Todd and Fernando got the news every week. Walk-off strikeouts, who's making a name? Who's in the clutch and who's taking the blame? Lone Star Halo, talking baseball, here we go. Big hats, bad calls, who's gonna rise and who's gonna fall?
Hey, welcome into another episode of the Lone Star Halo. I am Todd Fox. We already told you Hacksaw is once again gracing us with his appearance here on the show. And the Lone Star Halo is live in effect there from Texas. Let's get this show rolling, Fernando, as we express our pleasantries there to Mr. Hacksaw. How you doing, sir?
Gentlemen, good to talk to you. You had yourself a pretty good Angel baseball weekend, and the other two teams here in Southern California are trying to swim to keep their head above water. How you doing?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say that the Dodgers or the Padres are struggling to keep their heads above water. These are still two good teams, Hacksaw.
You could argue with me, but I'm a talk show host. You'd probably lose in that conversation. But we will cover all that going forward in the next half hour.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, we'll take it. I mean, that might have been our World Series, Hacksaw. Believe me, we had a very nice weekend. So let's get it started with that. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Now, I was really impressed with how the Halos played. You know, this road trip they made to San Diego, they scared the Padres a bit. But you know, young team, pitching staff that's struggling. We kept waiting around for, here come the bases on balls. Here come the mistakes in the field defensively. And here comes an odd home run or two. And obviously that happened. But the Angels, I thought, hung in there with as fractured a lineup as they have, as young as they are. I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. And then for them to go to Dodger Stadium and to do what they did, now you're calling it your World Series. It might be a bit of a reach, but hey, that's an accomplishment for that roster compared to the payroll and the roster that the Dodgers have. So they got to be pleased with what happened Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but obviously we still got 40 to 50% of the schedule left to be played.
Absolutely. Now, you watched a lot of baseball, and you're well respected for your sports takes in general, but especially in baseball. I want to ask you this, Hacksaw. Is this the type of series that sets the tone for a young group of players like the Angels? You know, is this the type of series that gets Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, Nolan Shanuel to take the next step in their development and hopefully in the future, not this year, but maybe the next year, truly competing?
Yeah, I think that's a real valid question, especially when you've gone through such a bad time as those kids have gone through. You know, that 99 loss season last year was wretched. And then we had the spurts at the start of this season where it's same old. So it's great to see young guys working hard, playing the way the manager wants them to play, to have a little bit of reward. That being said, though, Fernando, piece of reality. Do you have a complete roster? No. Do you have enough veterans on that roster in the everyday lineup? No. Do you have enough pitching to last 162 games? I don't see that. So, hey, enjoy the 3 games, build on it. You would hope front office, organization would find a way to add more established guys to a young baseball team. So, hey, feel good about what you did against the Padres and obviously what you accomplished against Dodger Blue. But in the big picture of things, they still need a lot of talent help, I think.
I agree, Hacksaw. I mean, I went to one of the games in San Diego, and first off, San Diego fans were classy. I loved it. It wasn't more of a rivalry. I think a lot of fans were like, "Well, at least you guys aren't the Dodgers." And there's that healthy little rivalry going on, and it's sort of like almost wishing the other team good luck in a way. But I got a lot of Padres fans telling me, "Man, you guys really fought really hard. And, we didn't think you guys were this good." It's like, well, we didn't think so either. And that series, and also with the Dodgers, Lee, they showed a lot of patience, which they hadn't been showing much patience at the plate. Have you noticed that in those 6 games so far on the road trip about their patience and willing to make pitchers pitch?
They put the ball in play. I was kind of impressed with that. But, at the end of the day, I kept sitting here watching the 3 games against the Padres and saying, well, that's a nice 5 innings. But they're going to screw this up because they're really young. And then
Yeah, there you go.
the pitchers started to walk the house. And then they started to make fundamental errors in the field defensively, which extended innings. And then all of a sudden they're going to the bullpen, and the bullpen's a little bit threadbare, and there's too much reliance on Kenley Jansen. And then the whole thing kind of unraveled as the Padres won 2 of their last 3. So I'd give them credit. Kids played hard, struggled to play 9 complete innings when you don't have a complete roster. Now, I was really impressed with what happened at Dodger Stadium. And again, we're talking about the Angels here. The Dodgers right now are so battered and have so many pitching problems right now that I guess anybody could beat them. And those 3 nights, the Angels found a way and hit some home runs along the way. So, hey, put that in your pocket, feel good about it. For all the things those young kids have been through over the last year and a third, that must have been pretty cool to feel that positive Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But now it's back to baseball.
True.
I want to ask you this about game 1 against the Padres. Now, that was the game that obviously the Angels won. Suarez, are you worried about him? In his last 7 games, he has an ERA of 7.50. Cause for concern, Hacksaw?
At this point, no, only because every time he's gotten off track, Fernando, and it's usually got to do with pitch location and not being able to locate certain pitches, and he can't live on the 100-mile-an-hour fastball every delivery. But every time he's gotten off track, they've gotten him back on track. Now, I don't know if it's a release point problem, if it's a mechanical flaw that impacts the release point, but, I mean, you can't argue with the fact the guy's got, 16, 17 saves in 18 opportunities this year. Now, he tailed last year at the end of last season, but I tend to think that was way because of overuse. And they've got enough setup guys to get him in the right situation to be a 9th-inning guy. They need to avoid having to ask him to go get 4 or 5 outs. The bigger Padre problem is their pitching staff. They're running that pitching coach and manager out there multiple times before the 5th inning is over. I think they're putting way too much stress on the back end of the bullpen, and that catches up to you over a 162-game schedule. But I don't have a problem with Suarez right now, and as weird as 1 or 2 of his bad outings have been, man, he's been electric the rest of the times. And that pitching coach, Ruben Niebla, has been able to figure out mechanical flaws in virtually every guy on that rotation.
I don't have Michael King's numbers in front of me. He's kind of been a tough luck loser his last couple outings, right? Just isn't getting run support.
He gives him 5 to 6 really quality innings, but he throws a lot of pitches. In fact, there are 3 guys. Their pitch counts are really extraordinarily high, and I guess you can't control that. Dylan Cease is the most erratic of the 3, and he was wretched for a chunk last season, and they fixed his stride and delivery and his release point, and man, he was superb for about 2/3 of the season. Came out of the gate this year, just staggered, just didn't look right. And I'm not a pitching coach, but I see flaws in delivery and release points, and they tightened his delivery the last 2 starts. He's been pretty good. King, he throws a lot of pitches. He gets into the 6th inning. He's got real bulldog in him. I worry about the pitch counts with him, but of the 3, he's the most consistent. And the wild card in the whole thing is the ex-Red Sox and Philly pitcher Nick Pivetta. He's got some real fight in him. He's kind of a pit bull, throws a lot of pitches, throws a lot of velocity, has had more good outings and he's had bad outings in San Diego. I think their big 3 is pretty good. My private concern is, these guys can't get beyond the 5th and 6th inning and the stress on the bullpen. And then the rest of the starters, 4, 5, 6, are real scattergun in terms of consistency. And the stress on the back end of the pitching staff to me is way too great. And we're 30%, 35% into the schedule, and these guys are being asked to carry way too much of the load down in San Diego.
Do you think that was part of the problem in the Seattle series? Because I was pretty surprised for them to get swept by Seattle. I know Seattle's good. I just didn't think they were San Diego good.
Todd, it's a valid question. Coming in the front door for that series, they thought Padres are going to get healthy against these guys. Because the Mariners starters, if you recall, and we talked about this prior, the Mariners had every starter make 30 starts last season. But I remember telling you guys during the winter, your pitching staff is never the same from one year to the next if you have workloads like that. And what's happened? 3 of their top 5 starters are on the disabled list. And that's a big issue. And I thought when the Mariners come in here with 3 guys in the DL, they're going to get strafed. And yet Brian Wu and the minor leaguers, the Hancock kid, they came in here throwing smoke with good location, and they just choked off the Padres. I mean, for them to keep Tatis in the ballpark for the most part, for them to blank Machado, for them to choke off Jackson Merrill, who's in a 1-for-19 slump now, that was pretty impressive because nobody else was doing that. So these kid pitchers behind what should have been a really good 5-man rotation, suddenly Seattle looks really, really deep. I'm not totally sold that Seattle's got enough bats in their order to support Julio Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is not having a good season. Again, I think he was hitting in the 220s coming into the weekend series. But there's no doubt that Seattle's a player, and geez, Seattle's got arms. They look like they are just loaded, and they have a unique, eclectic collection of relievers, obviously backed up by Munoz in the bullpen. Suddenly, they look better than I really ever imagined they could be.
Agreed.
Yeah, J-Rod is batting .235 where we currently sit right now. So we've been bouncing around already around the SoCal. So let's bounce over to the other SoCal team, the Dodgers. I believe they currently have 14 pitchers that have been injured, if memory serves correctly. Obviously, there's a lot of baseball left to be played. But at what point, if you're the Dodgers, do you get worried about the pitching staff in general, Hacksaw? I mean, you know, we were talking about how deep these guys were going into the start of the season. And now to say that depth is being challenged is an understatement. You don't know what you're going to get out of Blake Snell now. Clayton Kershaw just had one outing, got rocked, sure, but this is Clayton Kershaw we're talking about. Are you worried if you're the Dodgers?
I'm going to give you this pen. I want you to use it. It's got an eraser on the end. They have now had 16 pitchers on this.
Oh,
okay.
16. And we're not even to Memorial Day weekend yet. Think about that. Now, granted, they've not had as many surgeries, but they got a lot of guys ailing, and they got a lot of money tied up with guys on the DL. That's starters, and virtually every one of their relief pitchers is now broken down. And some of these guys have really got significant forearm issues. When you're giving pitchers plasma platelet injections into their forearms and elbows, and you have to shut them down for 2 to 3 weeks after the injection, and they come back and throw, and they're still not healthy and still not right, that's a real cause for concern. So they've got a myriad of pitching problems, and that does not include what's happened at Oklahoma City. Their top 5 prospect pitchers are all on long-term DL this season because they had forearm or elbow surgery last year. I mean, it's absolutely stunning where they are physically in the pitching department. They probably won't say it, but they got to be tremendously worried that they don't have enough pitching and access to pitching now. There's nobody left at Oklahoma City to bring up. They brought everybody up. The Landon Knacks of the world are here. Bobby Miller is averaging a walk-in inning in AAA ball, which is a real significant setback because 2+ years ago when they brought him up for the first time, he was really, really dominant. And I mean, everybody else is hurt. If you went through and made a list, you'd be shocked. At one point last season, by the time they finished, and yes, I grant you, they got the World Series ring. They had 11 pitching surgeries last year, guys, They had to use 19 different starters last year. They used 40 different pitchers during the course of the season. They were bringing guys in off the street towards the end of the season. And how many bullpen days were they going to? And they used bullpen days in the playoffs, which is absolutely stunning. And they beat the Padres in the playoff series with a bullpen day when I thought the series was effectively over. In the big picture of things, I'm in the minority. I probably won't get a Christmas card from the Dodgers, but I don't think the Dodger way works right now as it relates to pitching. They've had so many injury situations, so many surgeries, and they said they evaluated in the offseason how they handle their kid pitchers, what they ask of them, how they handle the rehabs and all that. Well, here we are, not even at June 1st, and all these setbacks that hit them last year have hit them again this year. So to me, it's a monster issue, and we got a lot of baseball still to be played, and we don't know when or if Snell's going to come back. And obviously, Glasnow just seems to break down way too often. And they got a lot of money tied up in both those guys. Snell has had a history of minor problems. He's had one surgery in his career. Glasnow has had a history of injury problems, Pittsburgh to Tampa Bay, and it's arrived in the mail at Dodger Stadium. And that's just a ton of money, Todd, that's tied up with those guys. And how much more money can the Dodgers add if they try to make a trade? Now, I will say this. The Dodgers do have a deep farm system. If the Dodgers could configure a way to get the right pitcher in a transaction, they could swap an outfielder. They could swap an infielder. Maybe they swap one of their minor league pitchers to go get somebody established in the rotation. But how much more can they take on from a major league payroll standpoint? Because I think right now their payroll plus the benefits is like $393 million, which is just astronomical. It's number one in all of baseball. So Dodger way to me is not working as it relates to handling pitching. And I don't know what the insight is and what the detailed metrics are, but boy, it's really, really hard to sit here and just watch pitcher after pitcher after pitcher, whether it's a veteran or whether it's a hot young prospect, break down the way these guys have broken down. It's a long answer to your question, but you asked me to philosophize. I'm telling you.
That's what bring you on.
Last I checked, it's your podcast. Go ahead, respond.
No, I just had a question about that too, to add on with the Dodgers there. What do you make of them releasing Barnes and also Taylor? Is that more along the lines that they can eat those contracts and say, okay, let's let the kids come up? Because I don't know. I have a theory with how they brought up Dalton. I want to know if you're feeling the same way. Are they actually showing him off as far as maybe a future trade piece to possibly add some more people like pitching down the stretch, or is he going to be their backup with all that talent? Because he seems like another can't miss prospect that they brought up.
Well, in terms of the decision to part ways with Austin Barnes and then to Chris Taylor, it's all about production. It is Dodger Stadium. They can afford to eat the contract, though, in all honesty. They're eating over $13 million of the last year of Chris Taylor's contract, and I think about $3 million with Austin Barnes. And that I think the Dodger clubhouse kind of aches that they've reached the end of the road with these guys. But if one guy's hitting 200 and has not done very much the last 2.5 years, and the other guy's strictly utility backup catcher, and he's hardly hitting at all, and they're both knocking down big money, are you better served to move to the next guy in line, which is the young prospect? Whether that was Andy Pages in the outfield or whether it's rushing now, I think they're looking for more contributions. And because they are in the number 2 market in the country, they're willing to swallow the contract. Now, that being said, if something significant happens with an injury to an everyday player or a super utility guy, they pick up the phone, call Chris Taylor and ask him to come back. And he'd probably come back because he's that kind of guy. But you have to face the reality you're reaching the end of the road with some of these guys, and they need to have a 25-man roster of productivity. And right now they got so many pitching problems, and a chunk of their lineup is not hit either. So that I think it's not to shop that kid catcher first baseman. That's to give that kid catcher some work behind Will Smith with a chance maybe to platoon and rest Freddie Freeman a little bit, let him DH some nights, and let Rushing go to first base. I don't think they're using him as trade bait. Yeah, he's too good a talent.
Okay, because I was going to say, because rushing this weekend, he was definitely proving he should be up in the majors. I think he went 8 for 14 or something like that. He was on fire. We couldn't get him out like we couldn't get Will Smith out. So
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers historically have always been very deep in the farm system. And it's interesting because maybe a year and a half ago, if we were doing this podcast conversation about young guys on the way, we would have said James Outman, James Outman, James Outman.
Mhm.
And instead, he's been on that connecting flight that goes back to Oklahoma City 5 or 6 times because he hasn't produced when he's been up here, but all of a sudden Padres comes out here and does really, really well. So historically, they've done really well in terms of drafting, signing, etc., with the exception of the catastrophe of what's happened to all these injuries to the pitching staff.
True.
So obviously, I want to throw out this name. How do you feel about Tyler Anderson and a possible reunion with the Dodgers there? Is that a piece that Dodgers can look to get? I think by the time the trade deadline rolls around, he'll still be owed about $7-8 million, which in my opinion would be pretty affordable for a team like the Dodgers. He's an innings eater, very healthy, and he's obviously on an expiring contract. Is that a kind of guy who the Dodgers would probably look for, that type of contract?
Yeah, guy who's got 2 months left in his contract that can give you innings, etc. Anderson that's a good prime example. Again, what do you have to give up? I mean, if the Angels are sitting there and saying, okay, we're out of the race and we're going to shop and be sellers, yeah, but the Dodgers are not giving you Dalton Rushing. The Dodgers might give you Outland, but I'll also tell you that the Dodgers, I've been told, are shopping for another bat, although I tend to think they should be shopping for an arm. I've been told the Dodgers have revisited with the White Sox about Luis Robert, who just never quite panned out because he had the great start of his career with the White Sox, and he's had 2+ years of really rocky times. He might be on the trade block. And, I've heard, and it was kind of confirmed today, Dodgers are talking to the Rockies about third baseman, first baseman Ryan McMahon. But that would cost them something to get that type of guy. In a good lineup, McMahon's in a tough situation in Colorado because that's a roster of kids, a roster of 4A players with one proven bat. If you had McMahon at Dodger Stadium, he would help them a great deal, but he's not coming cheap. And it would probably cost you a hot young pitcher. It might cost you Bobby Miller, or it might cost you Outland and somebody else. But the Dodgers, I think, are going to make a transaction, but it's way before the deadline of July 31st. But I do think there'll be a transaction there. Although I would argue with Andrew Friedman. I think they really need to concern themselves. Who do they go get as a pitcher rather than another bat? Because this pitching situation to me is they're in crisis mode right now. It's interesting. Dave Roberts, I think, said last Friday night, this is unsustainable. Your manager, and we can't live with this. He's obviously making reference to arm after arm after arm going down. So I do think the Dodgers will make a transaction somewhere along the way just to bolster that roster. But I think that it should be on the mound, not in the everyday batting order.
Yeah, it's, the Dodgers are, let's face it, the best run organization in Major League Baseball. I know it pains us to say it, but you have to give the devil their due. And they are run perfectly almost from the top down, but you can't predict injuries. I mean, there is no team that is built for 16 arm injuries. That just doesn't happen. I mean, that's unheard of. I don't know if it's something in the water. I don't know if it's, Mark Pryor had a lot of tough luck injuries when he was playing. Who knows? Maybe, unfortunately, that's something that's bleeding. Of course, I'm kidding with that. But you brought up the Rockies, Hacksaw, and I want to ask your opinion on this. We're still very early on in this season. Are the Rockies going to be a worse team than the White Sox were last year? There is a lot of podcasts I've heard of people saying the Rockies are going to be the worst team in Major League history. I think that's a little far-fetched. Do you?
I just have a real beef philosophically with the ownership. They have taken what was a really good regional franchise. They drew 4 million fans. Think about that, guys. 4 million fans in Denver, when they had the great teams led by Matt Holliday and all those other guys. And they have dismembered it, have not replaced the quality players. The Nolan Arenado trade blew up in their face. They're operating in more small market, than mid-sized to major market in a market that drew 4 million fans. Think about they'd be printing money in the hallways at the Rockies offices if they had a pennant contender that was drawing 4 million, and they're not now. And they don't have right now much hope of being real competitive in the foreseeable near future. You know, we talked about the Angels youth. You look at the Rockies lineup. I mean, they are all kids, and every one of their pitchers has had arm problems. I mean, led by the guy that used to be their ace, Herman Marquez. He just has not really come back yet. I did a look at statistics about a week ago as the Padres were in Colorado, even though there was a 21-0 game there. The Rockies starting rotation had ERAs of 5.47, 6.60, 7.12, and Marquez had an ERA of 9.90. And that's what they're sending out there every fourth day. And they don't have any power hitting. Got a bunch of nickel and dime kid hitters in the lineup. I have a major problem with Dick Monfort, who's the owner of this team. They've wrecked what could be a mega regional franchise. And, you know, they dumped Bud Black out. I felt bad for Buddy sitting here watching this 21-0 debacle last week when the Padres just torched him. But that's what's on the roster in Colorado. How do you expect anybody to win at the major league level when you're playing all the kids? It should probably be at AAA Albuquerque at this point. Will they grow together? Might a year and a half from now them to be good? I don't know. You got to get pitching. They don't have enough pitching to begin with. And I mean, I looked at that rotation, you know, starting with Marquez and going all the way down the ladder to Kyle Freeland. These were all guys that had great upsides, had some good years, and then physically broke down. And now you're forcing them back into the rotation, and they don't look to be 100% healthy at all. And they're just not the same pitchers. And you got no power in the order outside of Ryan McMahon. And, you know, maybe they should shop him and make a trade and get 2 for 1 and get the right 2 kids in the deal. But to me, it's a long road back in Denver.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Bud Black. I mean, honestly, I wasn't a big fan when he got fired in San Diego, especially not when they replaced him with Murphy, who's now having a successful managerial run in why am I blanking?
Milwaukee,
yes. But I didn't see that coming. I remember when he was with San Diego and he straight up said, "I'm just waiting for a bad team to come to town." I was baffled when he said that, Hacksaw. Last question I have for you, and we appreciate your time. I want to ask you about rivalry weekend. Obviously, we've seen a lot of these rivalries for years since interleague play started. You know, the Angels and Dodgers have always been paired together. Obviously, the Padres are not doing the Vetter Cup. They've always been rivals with Seattle. Best I can figure is because of the spring training facility they share. But what's your opinion on the marketing of rivalry weekend? Is this good for Major League Baseball?
That's a really valid question. I don't understand some of the quote rivalries. I'm sorry. San Diego, Seattle, Vetter Cup. Nah, that's a reach. Nobody pays attention to that.
Okay, well, who should it be, Hacksaw?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
It should be you guys.
There you go.
I've been down there when the Angels have come in to play the Padres. I've seen a lot of Angel jerseys, which is kind of cool. And that means people from OC might be coming down, people in San Diego who got deported from Anaheim are living down here now. And but again, you got your rivalry, so that you know, with the Freeway Series. So I understand why that would not work. But I do think rivalry weekend's cool. I didn't think baseball did enough to publicize it. What I think baseball should do, and I'm all big about marketing and creativity, guys. Take Memorial Day weekend and make that rivalry weekend on your schedule for everybody. Make it a big event Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. The second piece of that equation, if you think back to when we first started interleague play, they did something that I thought was right on, was they took a chunk of the schedule. It could have been in May, and then it would have repeated itself in August. And they made that interleague week.
Yep.
So therefore, you would play a chunk of teams in the other league in one compact chunk of the schedule first half of the season, and then you repackage it and play the rest of it another week and a half later in the season, and you sell it and you market it that way. So I think rivalry weekend would be cool, and I think, you know, interleague play weeks would be cool. But there's got to be a fixed position in the schedule where you point your eye towards it and say, yeah, this would be kind of cool. We're going to see these guys we never ever see. That's just me.
Yeah, I think on paper, rivalry weekend's a great idea, right? I mean, you know, because like I mentioned, some of these interleague rivalries have existed for forever. But I think it's great for Major League Baseball to pick a set weekend. Honestly, Memorial Day weekend's a great idea. They should have done that. You know, you would have just pushed it back one weekend. But that way, every year, when you get your calendar, the first thing, okay, when's opening day? When's the Angels or Padres first home game? When's rivalry weekend? You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of thing that people get excited for, right? You know, who are we playing 4th of July? Things like that. I think they could have done more, absolutely, to market it, because there's some big matchups that were happening. I mean, Juan Soto, even going back to the Bronx, wasn't really that advertised. I mean, we knew it was happening, but I only saw a couple of social media posts about it. Honestly, I saw more Better Cup posts about it than I saw about Juan Soto going back to the Bronx.
Well, it was big in the city, though, let me tell you, because he opened his mouth. Juan Soto said, yeah, this will be like 50,000 versus 1. Well, excuse me, Juan, Mr. Me, Myself, and I. Juan's talking about me leading the Mets. Well, if the guy hitting behind you is hitting 356, Peter Alonso, and Lindor's had a great first half of the season, and the Mets are just not about the guy playing in the outfield. And by the way, dude was hitting 246 and went 1 for 10 in that series at Yankee Stadium, and they just booed him all the time. But Soto is all about himself, and Soto tried to make it about himself. And instead of saying, I got this great team and we got this really good record in the National League and we're going into Yankee Stadium and that'll be cool, he's making it about himself. You know, 2 weeks ago, he made a statement because his batting average has really been low. And he said, well, and why he'd ever say this, I don't understand. He would say, well, you know, at Yankee Stadium, I had Aaron Judge hitting behind me. Well, sucker, you got Pete Alonso hitting 356 behind you. Why are you demeaning Pete Alonso and making reference to Aaron Judge? I don't understand anything about the persona of Juan Soto except it's about Mr. Me, Myself, and I. And that to me is a turnoff. But Mets, Yankees back there, I'll tell you, that was a whole week of headlines and angles and stories talking about Soto coming to Yankee Stadium, as if Soto's the only guy that's ever been great wearing the pinstripes, and he wasn't great there. So I think Soto does a disservice to a lot of people every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, people just naturally hate him, right? I mean, you know, it's funny. Yankees fans hate a guy who was forced to go there for a single year and then decided to walk away to make $5 million more elsewhere. I mean, that's a topic for another day. We could probably talk about that for a whole episode, but that's all I got. Todd, anything else?
Yeah, last thing I got, Lee, because I know we're up against it, and I really appreciate the time and coming on here. You're a busy, busy man. Last thing I got, Lee, is if you could tell the Angels, Dodgers, and Padres, or give them advice on how Lee Hacksaw Hamilton sees a productive end of May, what would you tell each individual team?
Yeah, Angels, take notes.
Yes, please.
If I were king, I just need to know what they're trying to do in terms of player acquisitions with the pitching staff. I understand, and we talked extensively in the offseason and wrapped around the winter baseball meetings, and I like the idea that they were bringing guys in on shorter term contracts to see if they could find a gem, you know, squeeze another year out of somebody. Kikuchi has pitched well without a lot of support for the most part. Hendricks started well, but it looks like it's all caught up to him, and I don't know that he's got much gas left in the tank. I'm kind of disturbed that Perry Manassian is bringing in every guy off every scrap pile. And if you're in some places and the Phillies don't want you and Atlanta doesn't want you, what makes you think bringing in Hector Neris is going to solve anything at Angel Stadium on your behalf? Because maybe his fastball is no longer what it used to be. There's got to be a way to find more quality pitching to get in here, because if you get quality starts from your guys, that's going to take less pressure off your shortstop and off your first baseman and off what I think is a really good power hitting catcher in O'Hoppe. But instead, they seem to be taking the nickel and dime route, and there's a lot of reasons these guys have been DFA'd and are on waivers, or somebody's 11th man on a staff that's about to get released. you can't bring all of them in and throw them on the field. I don't think it's good for the organization. I think it's good for the fans. The fans have to be a little bit upset about that. So how do we find pitching? I'm waiting for them to call up Caden Dana from AAA Salt Lake City. He got rocked in the spring, which kind of surprised me because I thought he was on the brink, but went back to Salt Lake City and has gotten, I think, progressively better and better. And maybe you get him into the show. And see, my problem, and I think I made this comment to you before, I look at their pitching staff. They got a whole starting rotation of number 4 starters. I don't see any ace in there. Yeah. Tyler Anderson's a grinder. That's cool. But you're not going to win a pennant or be in a playoff race just based on Tyler Anderson. So they've got to find a way to get more pitching. I'm still waiting from what happened 3 years ago. Was it they drafted 21 pitchers? They used all of their 21 draft picks on arms. And not many of those guys have gotten to the major leagues. A couple of those guys have gotten hurt along the way. So they're really
4 of those guys aren't even in baseball anymore, Hacksaw.
Yeah, they're deficient in that pitching category. They just have to find a way to do it. And I hate to issue memos to the Angel organization, but your people are down here. You saw Petco Park, how electric it is. You know what this ownership did in a really small market. This is the 24th market in the country, and they have a mega payroll because the owner invested in a mega payroll. And what did they do? They invested and they bought themselves into a pennant race. And Petco Park, you did go to Petco Park. You didn't spend the whole night in the Gaslamp Quarter drinking, did you? The Petco Park is the destination point to be. And that's beautiful. That whole atmosphere, guys, is electric. Why? Build it and they will come. You build the roster, you put yourself in the pennant race, and the fans will come. Is Artie Moreno paying attention to what the Padres have become in small market? Because you're the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. You're in a much bigger market. Need to invest. Now, he has invested. Some of it's blown up in his face. Some of it's been invested with a black cloud of injuries that have really hurt the franchise. But you've seen what the Padres have become. The Angels should do that too. And then we'll see if they can fix this whole thing there. That's, if I were a king, that's what I'd do with the Angels. In terms of the Dodgers, I'll call Andrew Friedman, send him a text. Got to make a trade for pitching. And in terms of the Padres, and I have not always agreed with everything A.J. Preller has done, but I've said this extensively on my podcast, and AJ's kind of reacted badly to it. Their window to do this, guys, is this. It's getting smaller and smaller because they have such long-term contracts with so many veteran players. They don't have a hell of a lot in the farm system because they traded the farm system away 3 different times. They've got to be in the World Series. I thought last year was the year, and they almost did it till they fell apart at the end against the Dodgers. They need to make that push. Got to get there this year, got to get there next year, because after that, they're going to have guys 34, 36, and in Yu Darvish's case, 39. And these guys are not going to be earning the big money contracts that they're being paid once they kind of turn the corner. So it's got to happen pretty quickly in San Diego because the chance to reload is way down the road. They got kids at A and AA, but that's a long way away from downtown San Diego. So they don't have much they can trade. I don't think they can take on any more payroll. Their blueprint has worked with everything except they haven't gotten to a World Series yet. But now that I solved the Angel problems, the Dodger problems, and told the Padres what I think, it's your turn.
Well, yeah, we just want to thank you again, Hacksaw, for giving us the time. You're, like I said, busy, man. We want to let the fans know again where to find you if they haven't already found you, because you are a legend, my friend.
Well, thank you. You read it just the way I wrote it. At the end of the day, I do a podcast Mondays and Thursdays, normally at 1 p.m. Both those days. We cover a ton of topics on the table. I have the website. It's all written. It's LeeHacksawHamilton.com. You might be a baseball fan, which you probably are watching this podcast. Might be a baseball fan. Read the baseball section. If you're into the NFL, the NBA, NHL hockey, and anything, I write about all that every day. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's absolutely free. Subscribe to my podcast after you subscribe to this podcast. And guys, always good to chat with you.
Same here.
Hacksaw, yeah, and give John Riley our best. We appreciate your time, and we hope we can do this again real soon. Thank you, Lee.
Especially on an Angel winning streak. That'd be kind of cool. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you.